Tammy, you're good to go.
All right, thank you. Well, we're honored to be back on here for the business part tonight. And I am excited to partner with Lisa Menez, who, if you were on for the first part, Lisa just shared her story with her husband, Matthew, and she's been a part of this business. She was one of the ones that said yes to the business at the same time that she said yes to the product, because, as she said in her story, she wanted the best price. She's a Dave Ramsey girl, so if she gets with you about getting your bills paid off, you'll know why. She's really good at that. But one of the things that that she shared on our training for our team the other night was so good. And this is something that we can use in lots of different aspects in our life, but especially in our business. So tonight, this is a business training. And I love that Lisa is not only we talked back and forth, and it was so beautiful because she's like, okay, this is stepping on my toes, but isn't that always the case when we are learning and studying and in order to be able to train for something? But how many of you know that you have things to get done, and you either write your list and you know you have to get done with something, and then other things come up, or you allow other things to come up? Sometimes you're just doing it on purpose because you're trying to not do the things that you know you're supposed to do. And tonight, Lisa is going to bring our training. I'm super excited. Lisa, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to you, and then we'll come back together after you get done, and we'll close it out together.
Thank you, Tammy, again, for inviting me to be part of this section as well. Yes, as Tammy said, I was able to do this training on Monday, and it really, really stepped on my toes. So the personal development part that I mentioned a few minutes ago, we should always be learning, and we should always be growing, and school doesn't end when you finish high school or college or grad school. And I think I've learned much more helpful information in these past few years with my business than I ever did in grad school. So I want to talk about avoidance tonight. And that word is kind of like a weird, like negative connotation, like I'm avoiding traffic, or I'm avoiding, I don't know, whatever negative thing that you might encounter in your day. But I want you to think about a question I'm going to pose here in a minute, because the answer is really important in your own development in your business. So here's the question. What are the things that you do as a way to avoid the difficult and sometimes scary actions you know you need to take in your business? Like, I know I need to do this more often, or why can't I be consistent with, fill in the blank. Those are patterns of avoidance. So let's dig in. So this training it's not original. It's not mine. I am just passing it along. The business coach Tammy introduced me to a couple of years ago. His name was Bob Heilig, and I really enjoy his training. And I was driving somewhere that I was going to be on the road for a bit, and I plugged in one of his podcasts, and I'm happy to share the link if anyone wants it. But this particular podcast really spoke to me. So he talks about managing your mind, and that it is all about your mindset. So he has a term called the red light story. So think about a red light. I'm from Chicago. There's tons of red lights everywhere. You stop at a red light. It's a traffic light. You're supposed to stop, and it stops you from proceeding on your route, right? Well, that's what these red light stories do, is they stop us. But this is his definition of what a red light story is. So this I thought was so like, it's a negative interpretation of a circumstance in your life. So the circumstance is it's just a circumstance, but it's our negative interpretation of it that can get us into trouble, and it gets me into trouble. So I am preaching to myself as I share this tonight. So we do this to ourselves all the time, whether we realize it or not. We are telling ourselves stories about our past, or about something that's going to happen in the future, that phone call you're going to make to that prospect, or that friend from the gym or church or whatever. So an example is prospecting. Okay. It's just a scary term. It kind of makes me like "Ugh," inside. We automatically think, or I automatically think, I'm just going to say me, they won't be interested. Joe is not going to take me seriously. Mary is going to think I'm too salesy. It's not going to go the way I want it to go. All these things are like unconscious, not unconscious, subconscious, subconscious messages that are going through my brain when I'm thinking about, I need to do prospecting. So, I find something else to do. When I'm faced with that circumstance of sharing the product or the business with a prospect or sharing the business with a customer, raving fan customer, this red light story pops into Lisa's brain and rolls around. And instead of taking that action that I know I need to do for my business, I wind up doing something else. I do. And I have lots of other things I can do. I have laundry. I have to put dishes in the dishwasher. I have bread I can make because I love to bake sourdough bread. That's kind of my jam, my recent COVID learned jam. I make these amazing loaves of bread. I need to bake cookies because my kids are fussing that there's no sweets in the house, and I need to go trim a bush in my yard, and la 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 la. We all have things that we can do. And Bob kind of helped me unravel why I do that. So first of all, he made me aware of it. And I was like, ooh, I don't like where this is going. And I didn't, but I kept listening. So when we're faced with that circumstance of something hard, we do something else. So another example is sharing reels to help grow my Instagram account and my reach, that I can reach more people with the amazing benefits of Juice Plus and nutrition. I think no one's going to take me seriously. I have no credibility. I don't know what to say. They're going to think I'm stupid. They're going to make some, nasty troll is going to make some comment. I feel discouraged and I feel overwhelmed. So instead of taking action, I go make some bread dough, or I check in with my dog, or whatever. These are all great things. So instead of just saying, well, I don't create reels, what Bob challenged me to do was identify what I do instead. So again, going into the kitchen to do food prep or hanging out with my sons. We homeschool our boys. So I need to check in with the boys. They're old enough. They're fine. But these are things I'm coming up with. And so he helped me kind of unpack it. So we feel negative about doing what we should be doing. Okay. So we do something else instead, which is a distraction. They're not bad things to do. I mean, baking for my family is a fun thing to do, or going out and playing in the garden. I love doing that. But these are not actions that are going to grow me as a person. And so I might feel like, oh, I feel accomplished because I got my bush trimmed in my backyard, but it's not something that's going to grow me. So here's another example that is a little bit more close to home. I'm going to go watch a training video. I'm going to watch something on the hub. That's great content. But, or I'm going to read a book. I have a great book by Donald Miller, who spoke at our last live, or some other coach who you really admire and have learned from. They make me feel great. And everything in life makes us feel a certain way, whether it's positive or negative. So for instance, if I need to be prospecting and all those red light stories are going through my head that they're not going to take me seriously and all that, that makes me feel negative. Whereas consuming the training or baking the cookies, that makes me feel good. So of course I'm going to do what makes me feel good instead of what makes me feel bad. And so that's how we rationalize it. So watching training is great, but it's not going to grow your business. Executing what you're being trained on is going to grow your business. But that takes courage, and that takes bravery, and that takes perseverance. And you have to do something hard. And so doing that action, rather than just becoming like personal development junkies or the baker of the year, because I don't want to do the hard thing. So a couple other examples: creating social media content that may or may not grow your business, but that's something that we can become. It can be a pattern of avoidance and not a growth opportunity. Or checking in on current customers or team. That's could be another pattern of avoidance, rather than reaching out to that new person who you met at the gym or the grocery store or the library. It's not the way to grow a business by doing the easy thing. So the easier path is much better and feels better than facing the fear of calling that new person who you met and who talked about their recent cancer diagnosis or that they are struggling with their health. So finding your pattern of avoidance when something is challenging, that's huge. So again, I listed off some of my patterns. If you are feeling brave, feel free to drop some in the chat. Think about what your patterns might be, because we all have them. So again, it could be laundry. It could be, I gotta take these books to the library and drop them off. I mean, it could be something simple or an errand. I need to go to the grocery store and buy ingredients for dinner tonight. But when we're transactional and we are thinking about the results only of the phone call to Joe, who you met at the grocery store, we're thinking transactionally and not transformationally. We're thinking about the result of that phone call. And the result focus is attaching our self-worth to the outcome of that phone call. So I am a good person, or I did well today because Joe placed an order. Well, that's a struggle of my own with my own self-worth. Maybe Joe just needed some encouragement and there's no result from a tangible perspective. But I feel better about myself because I trimmed a bush and I baked bread and I checked in on my students. And so I checked off 3 things, but I never called Joe because those 3 things were easy check boxes. Calling Joe is going to be hard. I hope that's kind of resonating with you, because when he trained on this, I was like, holy cow, that's why we have so much bread in the house. So what are you doing? I'm look at the chat real quick. I see someone is Norexing her floors. Okay, that's Bella Joy.
Good question. So when you call Joe,
yeah,
so you have this, you're avoiding calling Joe.
Yep.
And because you've already made in your head that it's hard. Yep. But how many times, and asking the others as well, like when we do the thing, when we're avoiding, picking the phone like weighs 500 pounds, right?
Yep. Yep.
Because we've already made up that story in our head that either it's rejection or whatnot. But how many times have you done the hard thing and you've called Joe? Now, whether the result is an order or not, but you feel so much better. You've been able to share with Joe. Joe is so happy you've called, and you get done and you're so thankful that you did the hard thing. How many of you have done that? That you've gone ahead, you've done the hard thing. We've all heard that, count to 5 and just do it, right? So instead of avoiding, just do it. This is so good, Lisa, because so many of us avoid the very things that we need to do to grow our businesses.
And so the same feeling of, oh my word, I made this gorgeous loaf of bread. My family's going to be so impressed with me or whatever. You can get that same feeling of accomplishment because you're not relying on Joe placing an order, but you're relying on that feeling of accomplishment because I called Joe. See the difference? So you did something challenging. And so you can feel accomplished just for doing the hard thing. Whether Joe orders today or in a year or never, you did the hard thing and therefore you should feel accomplished.
And Courtney,
so the question is, when was the last time you felt accomplished in your business? And when Bob posed that question in his podcast, I was like, yeah, it's been a while. So I really knew I needed to kind of, I listened to the podcast and then Tammy asked me to train on it. And I was like, okay, I got to listen to it again. So we all have things in our business that we know we should do, but we do other things. We all have them, right? But I want to challenge you to do those hard things and then feel proud about it. Feel accomplished. And it might be you just telling your upline, oh my word, I called a person who I met at the park the other day. That's actually on my list that Tammy gave me. But I met a new person at the park where my kid was sailing his sailboat. And so I need to manage my mind and be brave and call her and say, it was such a pleasure to meet you. Would you want to meet for coffee? And I don't want to do it. I'm just being real. And yet I have to think, okay, I just met her. There isn't really much of a risk, and I just need to do it. And worst case, she says, yeah, no, or she doesn't answer. Best case is she's like, oh my word, I'm so glad you called. I'd love to meet for coffee. So I'm not going to die from making that phone call. The worst case is she doesn't answer, or she doesn't pick up, or she ghosts me. And again, I'm no worse off. And so I try to look at the things that I can celebrate small wins. I called one person today. And that might be the goal for myself for the day, is I called one person, because I'm an introvert, believe it or not. And I could go all day and not talk to anybody else, and I'd be totally content. So for me to make a phone call, I don't need to make a phone call. I don't have to talk to people. I'm good. But those are growth-oriented actions for me. And whether it results in an order, or we even bring up Juice Plus at all, it remains to be seen. But I made the difficult thing, and I did the difficult thing, and I called the person. The other thing is, phone calls are difficult in general in our culture. I think we all like to hide behind texts, and there's nothing wrong with text, but I hide behind them, and I hide behind Facebook Message, and I hide behind some of these things because they're easy. They're less risky, if you will, in my mind. So I am trying to be intentional about make one phone call a day, not to a team member, maybe a current customer, because I'm afraid to call my customers because I think they're going to cancel. Does anyone else feel this way, or am I alone? I don't think I'm alone, but I don't call my customers, and these people are my friends. Like, why am I afraid to call my friends? But I think they're going to cancel, and I'm going to be devastated, and I'm not going to be devastated. People cancel. It's okay. But I need to do the hard thing. I need to be intentional about what's going on in my mind, and be aware. So much of what goes on in our business, whether it's our health or our business, is that we are aware that it's a red light story that's running around in our brain, and we need to acknowledge it. And we have to be okay with, I'm scared to make this phone call, and we need to feel that feeling. It's okay to be scared. Tammy has gotten messages from me that's like, I don't want to do this. I don't want to do this. It's scary. And I'm a grown person. I'm not like 10. So we need to be okay with feeling our feelings. We don't want to feel sad. We don't want to feel negative. We don't want to feel ashamed or rejected or fearful from making that phone call. And yet we need to feel our feelings. There is such freedom in it, and be like, okay, this might suck, and my feeling negative kind of sucks right now. But if I can call that person and not die, which you're not going to die making a phone call, but make that call, do the hard thing, make the reel, schedule the event in your home, and see who God brings into your path, see who God brings to your event, see who God has answered the phone. I've actually said prayers before I've made a phone call. I'm like, okay, if you mean for me to talk to Joe, Joe's going to pick up. And Joe might not even have my number in his phone, and he might ignore it, and that's okay. But I've left a message, just reaching out to say, hey, I care about you, and you came to mind, and I wanted to reach out. So transformation and transforming our business and transforming our minds is, it's an inside out game. So be aware of what you're telling yourself. Like, why am I, right when I'm starting to do something difficult, oh, I got to change laundry. Well, yeah, you need to change the laundry eventually, but make that phone call first, maybe challenge yourself and say, I'm gonna make one phone call. And if I don't die making the phone call, then I can go work on the laundry. And then I'm going to come back and maybe do something else that's hard. And then I can go mix up some bread dough. Or, you know what I mean? Like, maybe, I don't know. That's what I'm thinking about doing, is doing a little game with myself, that's like my reward, is I can do something avoiding once I do something brave. So I hope this is helpful. And I would love to know if you guys have avoiding things, what you tend to do. I know I put that in the message, but you never, ever know what doing the brave thing, how that's going to make you feel even better than the task on your list that you were like, I got to do this, and I got to do this, and I got to do this. But doing that growth action is going to make you feel even more accomplished than something that's not so challenging. So if you would like the information about the podcast that I got this training from, I'm happy to share it. And it was just very transformational for me. And I have some work to do. So I hope this was helpful. Tammy, any questions or anything you want me to unpack further, or
That was
hopefully I'm not alone.
Yeah, that was great. No, we all have that, right? We all have that. And honestly, think about it. If it is the phone call, if it is that, I would love for you to just think about, because obviously we're all here, we're all a part of the business. So we're all taking Juice Plus. Someone picked up that phone to share Juice Plus with you.
Yes.
So someone did that. Had they not, then who knows where you would be. So think about that and where you would be if someone else had not shared. The worst they can do is say, it's not for me right now, but they'll remember that you asked them. So we have to be more concerned about not asking them and just pick up that phone if that's the thing that you're avoiding. Lisa, thank you so much for being vulnerable, for sharing. I appreciate you sharing tonight. Thank you guys for joining in with us. And again, we appreciate you allowing us the opportunity to come. And so Josh, I'm not sure.
Bye-bye.
I'm back.
Everyone.
Bye. Good night.
Thank you so much. That was awesome. Lisa, can you like say that link, or did you type it somewhere?
I typed it a few things up. I don't have a link, but it is, excuse me, this is the Bob Heilig, Heilig is how his last name is spelled.
Okay.
And it is, if memory serves, it is podcast number 301. And he is on all the platforms. And he's on Apple Podcasts, and I do Podbean. And fun fact, he's going to be on the Pajama Regional in a few weeks. He's going to be one of the speakers, and I'm super excited that we've arranged to have him. But I believe, if memory serves, it's podcast number 301. It's literally called Patterns of Avoidance. So look for that title. And he's on all the platforms. It's what, Tammy?
His podcast is called Your Virtual Upline.
Yes, thank you. And it's maybe 20 minutes. I probably stretched it out, but he presents it so succinctly because he's done this training for so long. But I've listened to it 4 times. So
yeah, definitely. We're all doing that. Thank you very much. I appreciate you guys doing the training. Thank you. And the call. Amazing stories. I appreciate you guys. Thank you so much.
Carol.
Pleasure. Thanks, Carol.
Thank you. Thank you. Bye-bye.
You're welcome.
Thanks, Sam.
Thanks all.
Bye.
Night, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Good night.